All right, I'm going to get going here. Thank you all for coming. My name is Ingy dot net, and I'm going to be giving a talk today about Lingy and YAMLScript, which you'll find out what those are. There's 42 slides because I thought that was the right number of slides to have, and it's mostly live demos, so what could go wrong, right? Okay, so it's great to be back. This is my first TPRC since 2019 in Pittsburgh, and it's really great to see everybody and just be around friends again. Welcome to Toronto. I actually am from Seattle, but now I have a partner who lives in Toronto, so I'm here half the year, and I was just hanging out in the cold last January and learned that the conference was going to be here, and I'm like, well, I should help. And I guess it was a good idea because, as Alex said, I found the hotel and venue and all that stuff, so you're welcome. Anyway, let me tell you what I've been up to the past year. It's been a busy Perl year for me. I'm writing a new programming language. I don't know how many people know me. How many people have known me from before? How many people are surprised? What's that?
My reputation.
Okay. How many people are surprised that are not surprised that I'm writing a new programming language? Okay. How about that I'm writing two? Is anybody not surprised? Of course, you got to do more than one.
I don't know that it's possible for you to surprise us like these.
I know. So they're both hosted on Perl, and they're actually kind of practical. We'll see. Some other things. Last summer, I wrote a package manager for 42 languages so that you could use the same interface to make new modules and upload them to to their CPANs. And I did that because I wanted to write. Everybody writes bad YAML modules. I'm the guy who made YAML, and everybody implements it different, so the spec is bad. So I'm just going to implement all the language in 42 languages, and then they'll all work the same, whether they're good or not, who knows. I'm a Bash programmer, and I made a BPAN for Bash. I have bpan.org. Anyway, that was kind of cool. It's actually general and could be used for other languages that don't have a CPAN. I made a Lisp. We'll talk more about that later. I'm working on a destructuring assignment. Who knows about destructuring assignment in other languages? It's super cool, and I brought it to Perl, and I'm giving a talk about it Thursday, I think. And trying to add immutable data types, which are really powerful. If we had that in Perl, it would be pretty cool. And I'm trying to do that. So this talk is about the two programming languages, YAMLScript and Lingy, both hosted on Perl. They're both available on CPAN. You can install them right now if you want. And you can write Perl and CPAN modules in Lingy and YAMLScript, and I've done this. And you can use regular Perl or CPAN modules from Lingy or CPAN. They're both works in progress and very new in the last few months, but they are already quite useful and used by some as dependencies for some other modules. Okay, so I wanted to start by, before I explained what the things were, what I expect to get the benefit for Perl out of the whole thing. What I'm hoping is that you write parts of your Perl in these languages and you get excess level speed. That's not the case today, but I think that can be the case. And we can have concurrency, which nobody does concurrency. Who does concurrency in Perl? Who does threads? Okay. A couple of crazy people. But, yeah, it's not enjoyable. Well, I just don't do it. So maybe it is enjoyable. Let's see. And code sharing with some other platforms. You'll learn why this is important later, but Java, JavaScript, and C#. And I plan to move these languages to Python and other languages. Okay. One thing that we really need to do is expand this community. And hopefully you'll see at the end of the talk how I think interest in these languages might get us, people from other communities might be interested, and we could make ourselves bigger. Maybe. See. Okay, so I'm going to show you YAMLScript. It's a new programming language. The syntax is obviously YAML, but it's not your mother's YAML, which means it looks kind of weird at first. So stick with me here. Here's your first program, 99 bottles of beer on the wall. I think, knows that song from way back when. So it prints this 99 verse poem, or song. So here's what it looks like. Here's YAMLScript, a YAML file. These are comments. Here, it looks like we're defining some functions. You can kind of get the idea. Here we have a 4-line literal with some interpolation going on here, calling other stuff within the interpolation, calling this bottles function. And then we'll go ahead and run that. And we get the poem, which goes down from 99 all the way to no more bottles of beer on the wall. Great. But let's drink responsibly. So let's do 3. I'm going to do that immediately after this talk. Okay, so so let's install YAMLScript. Well, hopefully it's already installed. Latest version I put out a couple hours ago. Here's what the help looks like. So kind of like Perl, you can, if you run it just as YAMLScript, you'll get a REPL. If you use the -e, you can eval strings. And there's a few other options, and we'll see a couple of those later. I'm beating the clock so far. I'm on slide 9. You can see down in the lower left corner, you can see how badly I start to skew off of time, but these are the easy slides. So let's start a YAMLScript REPL with just YAMLScript. So here we are. I'm going to hit tab. I didn't even have to hit tab. Here's the various functions that you have available today. And let's just say 42. Okay. Here, do it again. Okay. Let's leave the REPL for now. Here's a simple YAML say hello world, a one-liner prints hello world. But notice we have quotes. You don't need quotes around stuff in YAML, right? So in YAMLScript you do, because those would otherwise be the variables hello and world dot, which is a valid variable, but not defined. So it says that it's unable to resolve it at this point. Okay. So we kind of went over the program. This is, this is it again. I thought we'd have more to say about it, but I think we've said enough for now. Next slide. Okay, here's FizzBuzz. Everybody know FizzBuzz? Okay. Yes. You're still what? Yeah, right. Okay. So this is actually 3 FizzBuzzes in one. I stole all these from, who knows Rosetta Code? I'm giving a talk on it tomorrow if you don't know it. It's really cool. It's like about 1,000 languages and about 1,000 plus tasks, and people implement as many as the tasks as they can in the various languages. I stole a bunch of Clojure stuff and converted it because it maps pretty well to YAMLScript. So the first function takes a count and an implementation, defaults to 100, which most FizzBuzzes do. And implementation 1 is this one, FizzBuzz1. I wrote a FizzBuzz2 and a FizzBuzz3. I won't go into how they work right now, but I will run them. So here's just a regular FizzBuzz. It'll default to 100 in implementation 1. And we get everything up to buzz, 98 FizzBuzz. Let's just show 16 fits on one page. And let's use the third implementation with 16, does the same thing. No big deal. Okay. I've actually ship all of, so right now, here are the examples that are on CPAN. And one I want to show you real quick. Actually, I'll show you from Rosetta Code. Just one second. Let's go back to here. I put all of these also on Rosetta Code as individuals. So if we were to look at the YAMLScript overview page, you can see the programs that have been added so far. I encourage you to add your own. That would be great if you're into it. But the Hello World one's neat because I have like 10 or 12 implementations. These are all equivalent ways to do the same thing. So all of these are valid YAML. So this is just a YAML scalar of this content. The first 4 are. This is they're just calling the say function with the hello world argument. This one's a little weird because this whole thing is supposed to be one string, but I start with a double quote. So it would end with that first double quote and cause a YAML error. A dot in front of that makes anything that follows just a string in that context. Anyway, okay. So here's some YAMLScript in real Perl use today. I wrote a test more YAMLScript, and here it is. It's basically a wrapper around test builder, but you can do it all in YAML like this, and calling YAMLScript functions and testing them like that. So that all works. But the cool thing about it is it's implemented in YAMLScript. So, because you got to be cool. All right. So if you look at the module, here's the PM file. All of that is there. So I have a version for it. And the rest of the code is in the YS file, the YAMLScript file. And as you can see, it loads test builder. Import is the way that you pull in Perl modules. Use is actually for pulling in YAMLScript modules. And we'll see why that has to be that way later. But anyway, I had to eval some Perl. I did it with this Perl function evaluated in some Perl. But the rest of it is just basically proxy calls to test builder. And it all works. Okay. I also have YAML test, which basically you just start your T files with hashbang user bin env YAML test. And YAML test will actually have more functionality than just the test more stuff added to it, basic test functions into it, but it's pretty new. So let us look at, this is cool. So I'm going to show a program written in YAMLScript that produces YAML using embedded YAML in it. So, and I actually got to shrink the screen a little bit. Let's do that, and Control Shift equals Control W. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so here I'm pulling in YAML PP, which is Tina Mueller's awesome YAML. I use it for everything. Don't use any of my YAML modules at all, which is great. And she's really she's done a really great job with that. So we create a new object, assign it to the variable YPP. And then we are going to actually pull in a second YAML file, which is on the left. We're going to, we get the full path to it. I need the actual path based on the path that I'm in right now. I load that YAML file and I give the result, the hash, into the variable defaults. Then I have 4 hashes. I have an array of 4 hashes, and I'm going to merge defaults with each of these as overrides. So I do that here. I say, create a hash map who has a key of entries and vec, which is an array, mapping each of the entries merged with the defaults. And down here we have, and then we print out, since we already have a YAML implementation in YPP, we're going to use that to actually dump the data back out as YAML. So let's see if it works. What could go wrong? And there, that's what it does. It merged all those 4 and printed them out. Now, that's kind of weird because who's going to run a YAML file? Well, we'll see a better way to do that later in the talk. That's when it gets really cool. Okay. So what is this YAMLScript? Where did it come from? It looks kind of weird. It doesn't look like YAML. What the heck are you doing, Ingy? It's actually just an alternate syntax for Lingy, which you're thinking is probably another weird idea, but just wait. It's all going to make sense. So Lingy is a Lisp, and a Lisp by implementation is a REPL, which means read, evaluate, print, and loop, do it again. And so all that YAMLScript is a specialized YAML reader for a very normal Lingy language. And so let's actually look at the code. So if you look at the numbers over here, the only big one is the reader. Like if we look at main or something, it's just a subclass of Lingy, which is the next language. So that's a good point. I kind of jumped the gun, but YAMLScript is a subclass of Lingy implemented, and then it has this massive reader file that does all of its magic in here. Let's go back to the slides. Check the time. Good. So let's talk about Lingy now. Lingy is just a Clojure. So here we come. We're based on a real language, Clojure, which is an awesome language in my opinion. And so Lingy is literally Clojure, all of it implemented in Perl. So, and we'll learn a little bit more about Clojure, but basically it's a Lisp that you can implement all of Java in, call call all of Java from it, and everything you write in it, you can call from other Java stuff. It's a really practical and interesting language, and I'm porting the whole thing to Perl. And then later, I hope to port it everywhere once I get more people interested and do the work for me. So, hopefully, because I can't do all this myself. I'm almost dead. Okay, so install Lingy. We got the latest version. Lingy help. It's a one's a subclass of the other, so it looks about the same. Let's start the REPL. So who saw Waltman's Freedom Canadian lightning talk this morning? I think everyone saw that. So Gugad gave me this awesome idea, and I have this REPL is great. It has search history. So I'm going to type in free. Oh, look at that. I have the definition of a freedom to Canadian conversion, and then I'm going to call that freedom to Canadian with 85 degrees freedom, which I checked is the current temperature outside. And the web will tell you that it's 29 Canadian, but it's really 29.444. So, just saying. Okay. And kind of the same thing, Lingy, you can do the same things. There's hello world. Here we're going to define a function. And we're going to, the XXX, which I haven't shown before, is going to actually do, who knows my XXX module on CPAN? It's just a debugging thing that is really handy for printing out a YAML dump of things anywhere in your Perl. And so I had this, of course, in Lingy and YAMLScript too. And here we just run this. And basically, what I'm showing you is the AST for this Lingy command. It kind of gets parsed into that tree. And here I'm going to run -e and -REPL. So I'm first going to define this thing, and then I'm going to try to run it. So here we have, I can hit tab, and my new function that I just did is already in the tab completion. So that's great. And I'm going to add 2 and 2, but it's going to add 1 more to it, and hopefully we get 5, and we do. So that's great. What's that? Yeah, very good. So how many people have heard of Clojure before? Okay, good. And how many people have used it? Not as many. Didn't expect so many. How many people like it? I like it. How many people, Sawyer here, don't like it? Raise your hand, Sawyer. You told me you didn't like it the other night. Maybe you're in a bad mood, because you're in a much better mood today. Anyway, does anybody like, and he also told me, does anybody like it, dislike it for any reasons that, besides it's a Lisp, and Lisps are annoying? I mean, even Sawyer said he basically just didn't like it because it was a Lisp. So it's just fair. You can do YAMLScript. I got you covered, baby. Okay, so Lisp is a pretty new language, and it was just made by a dude like all the dudes and ladies in this room. Just a guy who got sick of programming Java and figured out there had to be a better way, and he took 2 years off of work and just made it. His talks are great. This guy is just fun to listen to, and I've watched every talk I could find of his so far, mostly because I'm just trying to learn more about the language. But here's a little video of it, and I don't know how this will work. I'm going to point let's just see what happens.
So what kind of runner can run as fast as they possibly can from the very start of a race? Right. Only somebody who runs really short races. Okay. But of course, we are programmers, and we're smarter than runners, apparently, because we know how to fix that problem, right? We just fire the starting pistol every 100 yards and call it a new sprint.
Anyway, that was the only short. He's actually super intelligent and super down to earth, so I really like him. Anyway, he wanted to make it. He was coding Java every day, for 18 years before this, and he wanted to go back to coding Java and make it awesome. So he wrote a very practical language. It feels as dynamic as a Perl, but every expression gets compiled to the JVM as it's being evaluated. So it goes directly into the JVM. And of course, the JVM jits to the machine code that it's running on. So it ends up being very fast. It's interoperable both ways with Java. And it has immutable data types, which is very important because the two things I think that he added reliable functional programming to Java, and he added reliable, simple concurrency to Java. And so I want to, I said it right there, didn't I? So, see if I didn't say anything. That's pretty much it. It also works on on JavaScript, and I don't think they got very far with the CLR, but it was intended to work on CLR. Same source code, same Clojure source code. So Clojure is implemented in both Clojure and Java, or both Clojure and JavaScript, or both Clojure and C#, depending on the platform. And for Lingy, it's going to be all that Clojure code. I'm just going to take his code once I get to a certain bootstrapping point, and Perl equivalent to the Java. So how will Perl benefit? I'm hoping the same ways. I hope we can get simple functional programming and concurrency with immutable data types. It's not easy, but I'm going to figure it out. And if we have that, that'll make Perl better. But here's a big thing that I hope to get to quicker. So if I can compile to some kind of VM, like I can compile these expressions and they can be as fast as XS, just writing simple Lisp code, writing that interoperates with the rest of your Perl code. So that's what I'm hoping for, that instead of having to write XS modules when you need speed, you can just write Lingy or YAMLScript modules and get that same performance. And so I'm really feeling like we're kind of coming to maybe the last YAPC, So it was Dave Rolski sitting back there. He asked me during dinner the other night, he's like, I don't program Perl anymore. I'm just here for fun. I wonder how many people actually do Perl in their jobs. How many people actually code Perl in their jobs? I do. But some of the old, I think Sawyer doesn't either. He's just here because he likes us, and we like him, and we like Dave. So thank you for coming. Hopefully we can make Perl something that your job uses again. Probably not, though. So I'm hoping that this whole effort will lead more people, that YAMLScript will lead people to Lingy, which lead to Clojure, and then lead them to Perl. I'm hoping that the communities will kind of join, because Clojure isn't a huge deal, but it has a niche, really dedicated community. Kind of like us, and maybe like us a few years ago when we had hundreds of people rather than 85 people come to the conferences. Once they see that we do the same thing, or we can, maybe they want to invite us and maybe want to party with them, So let's see. Here's the Clojure REPL. Lean is this kind of wrapper thing that makes the raw Clojure REPL kind of sucks. So you saw it took about 3 seconds to start up, and let's run something 1 + 2. That works fine. Now let's run the Lingy REPL. Oh, so much faster. We can even add we didn't define. Oh, good enough. Okay, so this is cool. Let's mix the two. This is Lingy with -C. Thank you. I'm halfway through. And I'm at 23 slides, which is more than half of 42. So I'm doing all right. Check this out. So it started a Clojure REPL that it's going to feed everything to. So we do this. Let's define an anonymous function the simplest way you can. So it worked in both, but the output looks a little bit different between Lingy and the two. But that's just how you serialize a function in both languages. We might use that again later. And then the D is to add that XXX stuff. So if I want to say XXX 42, see what it looks like under the hood. Oh, it's just a Perl Lingy number object with the value 42. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick tour from the web of learn X and Y minutes, where X is Clojure and minute. Y is probably 0.5. But if you learn anything out of this next thing, commas are white space in Clojure, which is really kind of cool because you don't need them. But if you want them to make things look a little nicer, you can use them. They're just white space outside of strings. Okay, let's take a little look-see. Okay, so I don't know, maybe I'll blow that up a little. That's a little better. Okay, so yeah, comments begin with semicolons. Here we define a namespace like a package. Here we join some strings together. Here's basic math. So everything in Lisp, the first element of a list is the function plus, and then the parameters follow. Let's see. Class is something that will tell you basically it's like type or ref. For lists, if you want to pass them around without evaluating them, you put a tick in front of them, which is this basic Lisp. Every Lisp does that. Let's see, what are some other interesting things? Some basic functions here. We create an anonymous function that returns hello world. And here we use define, which we saw before in Lingy for defining a named function. I think when we get down to mappings, oh yeah, here it is. Commas are always treated as white space and do nothing. So great. So here's some mappings. It looks, so unlike other Lisps, Rich decided to use curly braces for mappings and square braces. So it's not all parens all over the place. He made moderate use of the different enveloping syntax. Yeah, I think that's enough for, so now you know Clojure. Let's get down to the, and here's how you pull in modules, other things. So you use means pull in another Clojure module and export everything that that you want as names into your current namespace. Require just loads it up, but doesn't import anything, same as Perl. And then if you want to pull in something from Java or in Lingy from Perl, you use import, which is a Python keyword, but that's how you do it in Lingy for any language, Clojure for any language, you do an import. And we'll see that actually work in Perl in a sec. So now that you know that, we can, right. So that's kind of basically what I was just saying. Use this to use require to pull in Lingy or the use keyword. And then, okay, so here's an actual example. I used Dave Rolski's datetime module. I just tried this the other night and it worked. I imported it, that worked. New didn't work quite the way I thought it would, but I just used the now method, and that gave me a date object that was for now. And then I printed it. And stringify is basically the full date and time thing. So let's go ahead and run it, see if it works. Boom. We got a date time module. We printed out the current date and time, which not sure how many minutes that leaves me. She probably knows, but anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so there was this project around, I made up a YAML script that was kind of a joke last summer. I'm like, for various reasons. And then I'm like, around Christmas, I'm like, I need to really learn what a Lisp is. So I just asked the internet gods, how do I make a Lisp? And they said, well, you use the Make a Lisp project from GitHub. So check this out. There's a project called Make a Lisp, and it took me 2 weeks to do it. It gives you 10 chapters, well, 11, including 0 there. And it gives you a test suite for each of them and just leads you exactly how to do all the things to make a Lisp. There's the whole, it's awesome. By the end, you have a really good idea. And it was actually based off of Clojure, although they cheated some and I had to uncheat it when I went to do the full Lingy. So I actually used that implementation to start Lingy. And check this out real quick. How many implementations are? I think there's close to 100 implementations in about 70 plus programming languages. It's crazy. And do you see one that's missing that begins with an R, has a K in it? So Raku guys, maybe you want to jump on that. Actually, I submitted pull requests for mine. There's a YAMLScript pull request, but YAMLScript isn't in here because I think they kind of gave up on the project after 10 years of doing this all the time, which is fair. But it was still a great thing, and you can still learn it and do it. So I'm going to show you actual Clojure code. This is the most important file implemented in Clojure. This is Clojure core, and it's huge. It has about 1,000 core functions defined, and every namespace gets this loaded. And here's what they are. And I'm actually now pulling code directly out of this programmatically for all the functions I support. I'm using that code directly, and eventually I will use all of this file. The other part of Clojure, of course, is Java. You can't do it it's a hosted language. So this is the main Java class. It's called Javalang RT, which stands for runtime, and it's also a huge file. But it's Java, and it'll hurt your eyes, so don't look at it. Okay. Okay, and let's look quickly at the Lingy source code. Go to the lib directory. Oops, there we go. Okay, so here are the core functions that I pulled directly out of Clojure. They all have the descriptions in them. I didn't put them in the, darn it. Here's the ones that I coded by hand that I couldn't quite make them work the way that Clojure works yet because I don't have all the dependencies for them. And then here is the RT. So this is the RT function where all of the backend Perl that these things eventually call lives. Okay. Get a little time check. Oh, doing good. So the Lingy VM, I'm going to make something called the Lingy VM. I just don't know what it is yet. So, because I was like talking to Paul Evans at the PTS in Lyon in April, and I'm like, Clojure compiles to a VM. What VM could I possibly compile to? He's like, well, consider the LLVM. But I looked at it and it was like really complicated. And then I was like, I have experience working with LuaJIT, which is a tiny little, it's less compiled. I think it's less than a megabyte big. And it's really simple. And it has jitting so that it will actually, as it's running, convert the hotspots to native machine code. So I'm thinking I'm going to look at that, but I'm going to write a wrapper that Lingy compiles to that will be make use of some existing VM. Not sure yet. What are the major roadmap milestones? Like I said, I want to get most of Clojure core done. So the immutable data types that exist in Lingy, they have to be immutable. But they just like if you add, for an immutable hash, you add a key to it and you get a new hash. And in Clojure, it does that there's something called HAMT. Look it up. It's something somebody made up in the year 2000, way before Clojure. It's an algorithm. And other languages after Clojure adopted this. It's a way to make immutable things such that when you add a key or delete a key, you get a new object, but it shares everything with the original one, extremely fast and extremely memory efficient. I'm hoping to do that for Perl. How can you contribute to Lingy? Well, look for a bug. So let's find a bug. I found this one last night. Use the count function, and it should work on, like if we do a count 1, 2, 5, 6, we should get 4. And we get that in both Lingy and Clojure. And what if we make this into a hash? So mappings in Clojure are just defined. We'll put a comma there, but it's just pairs like this, right? So we're going to have, so yeah, it basically just doesn't work, but it would be simple to fix it. I just didn't at the time. I think it was the Make a Lisp project didn't require you to do that. So it's something I'm suffering from that. Anyway, find something like that and then go add it to the code. Or check this out. So oh man, I know that needs to be a pound, doesn't it? There we go. So here's on Rosetta code, a bunch of Clojure implementations of FizzBuzz. I want to show you a kind of cool trick. So this one actually works in Lingy. I'm going to just dump it into the REPL, and this will run it in both. So let's see what happens. Yep, it ran it both in Lingy and Clojure. Great. But check this. I added a feature. This doesn't exist in Clojure. If you replay a command and put a space at the end, it will collapse it into one line, which is kind of useful for various things. Anyway, that's just a little trick in the REPL that you can use. But let's go and take another one that doesn't work. This first one I think will not work because I don't implement do SEQ. So let's see what happens. Yep, it worked in the second one, but not in the first one. Let's just turn off the -C so we Don't get the Clojure blowing us out of the water there. Come on. I don't know what I'm doing. Forget it. Moving on. Okay, so debugging Lingy, you can actually call Perl, which doesn't eval. Check this out. So there's an @inc. Or you can use this XXX stuff, which you've already seen, but check this out. I'll run it on the some variables, some global variables, special things have earmuffs on them, and that's what they call them in Clojure, the asterisk on either side. So that's an actual variable, star ns star. And if I run this and I do an XXX on star ns star, which is the current namespace, this is where everything lives, and it's just a ton of YAML. So kind of cool. Right. Okay, so now that we know Lingy is just Clojure and Lisp, and that YAMLScript is just an alternate syntax for Lingy, let's take a little bit closer look at YAMLScript. So I don't know, I know very well how YAML works, but most people don't. They think it just takes text and it turns it into Perl and vice versa, but it actually goes through 3 stages. It parses it, it creates an internal tree, it tags every node on that tree. You know, who knows about bang tags in YAML? You don't use them very often, but you see them once in a while. It's just bang foo in front of any node. Internally, those get applied to everything on every load. And then those tags name the functions that convert that node into Perl or whatever language you're working in. So I used Tina's parser, but beyond that, I went through and looked at all these weird combinations of things, and I gave them YAMLScript tags, and then those called constructors that made the right Lingy code. And so that's how it works. I'm not even going to talk more about that. Let's see, YAML loading different. Yeah, so I was just looking at this thing. I mean, this is like looking again. Here's some YAMLScript and here's some Lingy. So you see this name space colon, and you're thinking, well, first you see equals colon, and you think that's a token, but it's not. It's just namespace equals colon the rest. But, you know, as I'm tagging that, I look for this kind of thing and I tag this, oh, this is an assignment statement. Here we have 2 keys that are duplicates. That's not allowed in YAML, but it's really not allowed in the YAML data model that you normally load to. So, and here key order also matters, right? You want to do all of these things in order or it wouldn't work. So, breaking some of the normal YAML rules, but it makes sense in this context. I'll just go to this one real quick. So this is, if you look in the documentation, these are all of the special things. So this is how they look in YAMLScript and how they turn into Lingy. Let's look for some interesting ones. Yeah, so it definitely kind of looks the same, but it's really, this is this is how you define like adds and stuff. You actually define them as a multi-function, and then they call each other depending on the number of arguments is what gets called. And it looks almost the same as this, but it's different. This is a hash of things. Anyway, you can read through that. And also, this is the cool part, yes expressions. Let's actually look at that, because I don't know if you've noticed, but instead of doing things the Clojure way, I do 2 tricks here. I take operators, kind of like Haskell and other languages do, and I make them infix. So if I see like a plus, a minus, or whatever as a second operator, I switch them around. If I see foo and open paren, I just kind of switch the paren with the foo, and I get this. So this makes it look more like an imperative language, even though it's just a little syntax switcheroo. This only works in YAMLScript, not in Lingy, of course, because Lingy is a Clojure. YAMLScript is a nicer syntax. So, and the arrow thing does some stuff that this is how you would call an object method in Lingy or Clojure, which looks really weird. And here's how you can just do it in YAMLScript, which looks pretty normal. Okay. So, and here's that date timer thing again, but it's also, you can just see, I left the Lingy in, but here's how you would do it in YAMLScript. And here's the use of that, calling the stringify method on the DT object. And the parens are necessary there. So let's look at the 299 bottles of programs side by side. On the left is Lingy. On the right, let's ignore the comments at the top. And so you can see, I think, my opinion is that the one on the right looks cleaner. But it's also a bespoke syntax. So if you're really into Lisps, you're going to like the one on the left better. If you're not, you might like this one better. You might like neither of them. But if you have good reasons, let me know and we'll fix it if it's fixable. Okay. So yeah, that's the other thing is YAMLScript. Lingy is obviously not going to target Java because Clojure already does that, but YAMLScript will. It will actually just feed its stuff to, so maybe, that's a way that we get those Java people interested in our community, and it's kind of a gateway drug. And here's that script I was showing you before. So now you can kind of see, we load up test builder. We create a new test builder object with, arrow new. Now you understand that. Here's the proxy methods that calls all of the things. So all of these things have a call TB. Let me blow that up for you a little bit. There we go. So we define call TB here. It's called call test builder, and they're just little proxy things. Slide 39. 39, 40, 4 to go. All right, we're doing good. Okay, so here's the cool one, right? So remember before we ran a YAML program that produced YAML? What if we could just load a YAML file that had YAMLScript in it? It ran it all, but it just loaded with whatever the result of it is. Well, this morning I got up at 4:30 and I made that happen. So you're welcome. So here's the original stuff, right? We had these two files, and at the bottom, it says say, and it actually prints the data out, but we don't want to do that anymore. Let's look at the YS compared to the YAML. So if I go over here, notice I put a pound YAMLScript. So you actually have to be declarative and put a tag up here. That's what a tag looks like. And that's going to invoke the YAMLScript thing on the whole data structure. But look at it. It's the same code, except down at the bottom, we just return the mapping that we're creating instead of printing it. Basically the same thing. And then we have here's how you would do it programmatically in Perl. I just load data dumper so we can see not YAML for a second. And then I wrote a new module this morning called YAMLpp YAMLScript, which is just a small subclass around YAMLpp. And it gives you this load file function. And it's going to run the YAMLScript code in that, whatever that data structure returns, that's what you're going to load into this $data variable, and then we'll data dump it out. So see if it works. Just run it with Perl, and it works. That's your data dumper of what it produced. Pretty cool. Anybody think that's cool? I think it's kind of cool. Because everybody's trying to program in YAML, right? Everybody's making it up a different way. And I'm not saying this is the only way, but this is and they all are bugging me. Why don't you add this function and this function? I'm like, that's not what YAML does. But, go talk to AWS and see what they're, but. Oh, I knew I was going to do that. I was going to blow through everything. So, yeah. So using Lingy from Perl, you can call Lingy a val. I think it's broken right now. Or actually you can use Lingy from Perl. From Perl, you can load up Lingy and run some stuff and get the data back as it was run and still continue on with your Perl. So I want to start make a Lingy project. I really want to do this so that hopefully 90 languages join in and make this thing for everybody. But that's a lot of work, but we'll see if it happens. But if you guys are interested and want to help out, that would be really cool. I kind of talked about what to do there. There's a hackathon on Friday if you want to join that. I'm going to put up all the information, including these slides and video, in the Lingy module on CPAN. There'll be links to it and also links on how to find out how to contact me directly if you just want to because this is what I've been into. So if you want to get into it, we can do it together. Anyway, thank you, everybody. And I've given permission to have a Q&A. If anybody has a couple questions, I'll take them. So, yes?
You mentioned tests. Do they also output YAML?
No, they output tap.
Okay, I'll have to write tap format or YAML.
Please. Anything else? Come on. All right. Well, thank you very much.